Hello YouTube, I am your friendly web developer and I'm going to talk about email today. Email is one of the more boring internet technologies because it's so old. I mean, it existed already when I was born, and it hasn't changed much, if at all, since then. As a matter of fact, email is older than the internet, and originally you could even use email without having a computer network. Imagine back in the 1960s when a single computer would weigh more than a ton. Many users in a company or institution would share the same computer and leave messages to each other on it. And then computer networks came about, and we invented different ways to move that mail between computers. And the system that we use right now, that we call email, it dates back to 1982. That's when the SMTP protocol was defined. That was 35 years ago. We've had some extensions and some extras added on top of that protocol, but the main thing has been the same all these years. So email has this old school, nostalgic vibe of the early internet, the age of the pioneers, and it can be annoying sometimes. Because it's a pretty bare service, it doesn't reliably guarantee end-to-end encryption, for example, or any sort of real-time delivery confirmation. And in this way, it works much like regular mail. So, say you are an office assistant and your boss asks you to drop a letter at the post office. You do that, and that's it. Your job is done. Your boss is not going to ask you the day after that, hey, why hasn't that letter made its destination yet? No, it's not your responsibility. The postal service should take care of that. But when you are developing an application that sends any sort of automatic email notifications, you're going to get that question a lot. Why are some emails not coming through? And you know how in a PHP application, the most basic way to send email is by simply using the mail function. Don't do that. You don't know what's behind it. You may have a poorly configured server. You may have bottlenecks down the road. You may be missing some optional headers which are not essential to sending emails but can impact delivery. For all you know, some server admin could have the output of the mail function redirected to dev null. So a more robust solution instead would be to use a ready-made library for sending email in a way that you can control it, and to route your email through a reliable third-party service that specializes in delivering email. So you know your messages are handled professionally, and you know that you can rely on some kind of tech support if anything goes wrong. The library that I almost always use is PHPMailer, and in case you haven't heard of it, I'm going to put a link here in the description. PHPMailer is open source, tested, reliable, and flexible. If you are developing a PHP application, I would recommend to use that, unless you prefer a specific library made for your email delivery provider. And I'm going to talk more about that in my next video. But here is an example of how you can use PHPMailer. It is very simple, so there's no excuse not to. First, you load up the library. And you create a class instance. Then you set up your SMTP settings if you want to use a specific SMTP server. And like I said, you do want that, because this way you have more control over the emails. You have the option of setting up a backup SMTP server if you have one. It's usually password protected, so there are the options to set up your SMTP password too. You can then add one or more sender and recipient names and addresses. You would almost certainly be interested in setting your own sender name. And then you have the standard extras like a different reply to address, carbon copies, blind carbon copies, so you can see it's much easier than doing this whole thing manually with PHP's built-in mail function. You can also add attachments. And you can send HTML emails by setting the respective flag. And that's the most typical way you would use PHPMailer. As you can see, it is very easy and it will save you time down the road. So now that you have a robust software solution, you are still going to need a reliable SMTP server to work with. And I'm going to say more about that in my next video. Thanks for watching and stay tuned for more. See you soon.